Welcome to September the 7th. I'll start from 2017, work back to 2013, and take it from there. Something should not happen, but they do. The Australian High Court has determined that the postal vote on gay marriage can proceed. Activists like Get Up and the Greens tried to oppose the vote on the grounds they wanted to have legislators impose a will on the issue, potentially at odds with the majority view. Costs have been awarded, and Get Up have to pay for their attempt at extra constitutional rule. Now, to be really free, Australians should vote no, because a yes vote does not entail protection for churches which act on conscience over gay marriage. So a church could be sued if it declined to marry a gay couple. Mind you, some churches want to. There's already civil union, and gay marriages are recognized, as are polygamous ones among refugees. What became of the UN-endorsed principle of proportionate response? Wrapping a terrorist in an Israeli flag is described as torture, but it is only difficult if the terrorist is also an anti-Semitic bigot. And if that is the case, can anyone be responsible for what they fear? Assume for the moment that there is no legitimate reason for terrorism. Then anything a terrorist likes or dislikes is bound to be irrational. How about we describe torture as being something like terrible done, like genital electric shocks, drowning, etc., etc. But if we do that, then we must also admit that those seeking open borders are themselves torturers. From 2016. Comparing right-wingers with terrorists is lazy. The rhetoric of people like Wilders and Farage is in opposition to rape, murder, and torture. What examples are there for Wilders following murderers, cartoonists, or Farage's followers killing gays? Maybe it is better to question the left's embrace of murderous compassion for migrants from weak borders which promote piracy. The UN has an appalling history of supporting terrorism and even preventing peaceful settlement. The UN only went into Cambodia after Vietnam ended the killing fields. When Libya bombed a passenger jet over Lockerbie, they worked very hard to make sure that the killers never went to trial. The UN often fails in her evil plans. Prince Zayed Ra'ad Zayd Al Hussein is a Jordanian prince, so his views may be jaundiced for cultural reasons. But that is unprofessional from the head of the UNHCR. His wealth does not legitimize his countryfolk for killing Jews under the false name of Palestine. From Al Jazeera. The UN human rights chief has accused U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump and Dutch nationalist Geert Wilders, among others, of spreading humiliating racial and religious prejudice. Zayd Ra'ad Al Hussein said on Monday that populist demagogues and political fantasists like Wilders and Trump, as well as Nigel Farage in Britain and Marine Le Pen in France, were using fear tactics similar to those of the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. Make no mistake, I certainly do not equate the actions of nationalist demagogues with those of Daesh, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said at a gala dinner organized by the Hague-based Peace, Justice and Security Foundation. But in its mode of communication, its use of half-truths and oversimplification, the propaganda of Daesh uses tactics similar to those of the populists, and both sides of the equation benefit from each other. Indeed, would not expand and influence without each other's actions, he added, calling for global action to lessen the influence in populist politics that could turn violent. Except Prince Zayd Ra'ad Zayd Al Hussein is guilty of the gross oversimplification of issues which influence others to turn violent. For some, at the moment, the sex party has more credibility. From 2015, Fairfax propagandists call themselves News Service. To avoid tragedy, refugees must come from refugee camps. ALP and Greens try to corrupt Senate to corrupt the Governor-General. They want to get the Governor-General to dismiss the competent sitting judge of Turk. If he does as they intend, they will soon ask the Queen like they did in 1975. Leak Cabinet discussions herald back to the pre-shuffle comments regarding government performance when Turnbull was agitating for change. Government has changed, becoming more clearly responsive since, who's still retaining competence governance, but the partisan media has not changed.